Hi, I'm Claudia Donnell, and welcome to That's Tasty, where great food is made easy. Today we have a nice menu for you, something that you can cook when you get out of work. We're going to make bourbon chicken, steamed rice, and steamed broccoli. Wonderful, nice, healthy meal for you and your family or whomever. It's tasty, it's interesting, and it's not something that we have every day. So when I discovered this recipe, I was a happy girl because I get sick of eating the same thing, not to mention my poor family. So when you're cooking, what you want to do is decide which thing takes the longest, so that you start with the thing that takes the longest and then move backwards so that everything comes out at the right time. I'm going to start off with the rice just because I want it out of the way and done. So let's go over to the kitchen sink because I want to show you how to get the rice going. So we're just going to put some cold water in here for now because we need to rinse the rice. And all I'm doing is putting in a little bit of water, and you can see the water, is getting milky white. And what that is a layer of starch. You don't want necessarily it to be really starchy because that is what makes the rice sticky. So we're just going to steam the rice so that each kernel or grain of rice is individual and not all clumped together. So I'm going to put this on the stove. I'm going to turn it on high. Whoop. And I am going to put some water. In here, the ratio for rice is 1 cup of grain to 2 cups of water. I have 2 cups of rice in my pan, which means I'm going to use 4 cups of water. So we have 4 cups of water. I'm going to put in a teaspoon of salt. Now 4 cups of rice should feed 4 to 6 people. They figure on average 3/4 of a cup per person. That's the average serving size for your rice. So we're going to give it a little stir. And we're going to let that come up to a boil. And then I'm going to lower it so that it steams. We're going to move over here. They had some beautiful broccoli crowns on sale at the market. Look at them. So I just trimmed them from the stalk, broke them up into pieces. It's on top of the steamer pan, and there's about 1 inch of water in this pot. So I'm going to sprinkle about a teaspoon of salt on top, turn it up, bring this to a boil, and let it do its thing. Now, the thing you want to remember is neither the rice nor the broccoli you want to keep boiling. You want to, once it comes up to a boil, we're going to turn it down to simmer. In the meantime now we're going to get real. Now we're going to start with the chicken. So I have my trusty, beautiful pot that I love. And I'm going to put it on high. The interesting thing about, and I'm going to let the pan get warm. The interesting thing about bourbon chicken is I always thought that bourbon was in it. Now, and there are probably some recipes out there that have bourbon in it. This recipe that I'm using does not. It has no bourbon in it. And the reason it got its name, the man who invented this delicious, easy meal was a cook or a chef at a restaurant on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. So hence the name Bourbon Chicken. So it's getting hot now. I'm going to take about maybe a tablespoon of olive oil. Bringing that up, nice. I'm using individual cut pieces of boneless, skinless chicken thigh. And the reason why I'm using the thigh is because it's an easier, a more delicious meat than the breast. The breast has a tendency to get very overcooked very easily, and then it won't taste good. Dark meat doesn't overcook. You can cook it, it's not going to get hurt, it won't get dry, it'll stay tasty, and it's very flavorful. A little bit more in calorie, but much higher in flavor and tenderness and juiciness. So we're going to let this brown. I've already done some. You want to have a layer of the chicken. You don't want it to overcrowd because then it will steam, it won't cook. So here's some already browned. It's not cooked through. We'll cook it through shortly. So the other interesting thing is this recipe calls for no salt and pepper, and you'll see why. So let that cook. I'm going to check and see how my rice is doing. It's not boiling yet. And the broccoli, that's not boiling yet. So we'll just got to keep our eye on it. When you're cooking your rice, this is important. A lot of people, think if you're messing around with your food all the time, you're cooking really well. Well, you might be, but you're doing too much work. You don't need to work that hard when you cook. When you get your rice up to, and we're almost there, boiling, and we're going to give it a little stir. We already put the salt in it, and I'm going to lower it to simmer, and I won't touch it again for 10 or 15 minutes. I'm not even going to look at it. It's going to do its own thing by itself. Same thing with the broccoli. Same thing with the chicken. We're going to brown the chicken on both sides. Then we're going to remove the chicken, put it in a bowl, and start the sauce. So that's where we're at right now. Let's see. Okay, we're boiling here. So I'm going to give it a little twirl because it gets a little sticky on the bottom. We don't want it to burn. Put the cover on, turn it down to simmer. Now it's going to cook. It's going to be happy. We don't have to worry about it for about 10 or 15 minutes. I will check on it from time to time, but I won't touch it. I'll look at it, but I won't touch it. This is not steamy yet, so that's a good thing. When you are browning, I did the wrong one. When you're browning meat, what you want to do is let it tell you when it's time to turn it. If you are struggling to scrape the bottom so that you can flip it, if it struggles, it's not ready yet. If it releases itself easily, then it's time to move it. I'm sure right now it's not time to move it. Oh, well, I lied. So I'm just going to flip it. You don't have to get too fussy. That's one's not turned or that's not turned, but it's all right because it's going to cook in the sauce. So you're just going to let it do its own thing. When we have food allergies in our family, and the one with the biggest food allergy is probably the one that my son, the one son, that is the fussiest with whatever it is that he's just not easy to cook for. He's I don't like this, I don't like that. We were at a friend's house for a barbecue when he was probably 10 years old, and they had bourbon chicken that they were going to barbecue up for him. And my biggest concern was it didn't contain milk or a milk byproduct. I didn't care if it contained bourbon, because when you cook, typically 99% of the alcohol burns off. So I wasn't afraid that my young son was going to get drunk eating this bourbon chicken. That wouldn't have been a good thing. But he really, really liked it. So recently I was going through a bunch of different recipes, and bourbon chicken. And I said, well, where's the bourbon? Again, there was no bourbon. It was just because of the man who developed it. So we are in good shape here with our chicken. I'm going to lower the heat to about a medium heat. And I'm going to remove the chicken. Put it in a bowl, set it aside. Now we're going to have fun. Because that wasn't fun. That was just, something that, a means to an end. That's what that was. Now the fun begins. There's still some juice in here from the chicken, so we're going to keep that. And there's a little bit of bits and pieces of the chicken that was stuck to the bottom of the pan. And that's okay too. So we have it down, and here we go. We're going to put in brown sugar. Calls for 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar, light brown sugar. This calls for light brown. If you use dark brown, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. It might, but what the difference between light brown sugar and dark brown sugar is the amount of molasses that is in it. So if you use dark brown sugar, it's going to have a little more of a molasses taste, which I don't think is necessarily all that bad. So if all you have in your cupboard is dark brown sugar, use it. So we have the dark brown sugar. We have, it calls for a cup of water. Pardon my back. Cup of water. A crushed garlic clove. This recipe that I'm giving you is for 4 people. It calls for 2 pounds of chicken, and in this case I used the chicken thighs. There's my crushed garlic. I have a little bit more here because I'm making more than 2 pounds. Ginger. It calls for a quarter of a teaspoon of ginger. Because I'm doubling the recipe of how much chicken I made, I'm going to put in a 1/2 teaspoon of ginger. So as you can see, it has a little flair of Chinese Oriental food. And there's more coming. We have soy sauce. The original for 4 people, it would be 1/3 of a cup. I'm going to do 2/3 of a cup because I doubled it. Throw it in. We have cider vinegar. If you're making it for 4 people, you want 1 tablespoon of cider vinegar. I'm making it for more, so guess what? I'm using 2. I see my broccoli is starting to steam, so I'm going to turn that down to just above simmer. I have chili pepper flakes, and it calls for there's a teaspoon and a half in here. For 4, you'd use 3/4 of a teaspoon. Ketchup. Who would have thought there's ketchup in this? For 4 people, you would use 2 tablespoons of ketchup. I'm going to use 4. You're also going to see me do something I don't ordinarily do, and that's use a tablespoon. But I figured, hey, I might as well make it as legitimately as possible. Usually I eyeball it. That's certainly easy enough. And I'm going to give it a twirl. Oh yeah. There's one other ingredient. It calls for apple juice. Now, I don't have apple juice, but I do have apple cider. So I'm going to use apple cider because to me they're almost the same. And here it is, fall. Everybody has, or most people will have apple cider in their refrigerator. So in it goes. So I'm going to pop this up and let it come to a boil. I'm actually going to let it boil for a little while because the sauce you want to get nice and thick. And the pieces of chicken that are on the bottom of the pan, that will loosen up as the heat goes, and we will the flavor will be really good. So everything seems to be well combined, developing the flavor. And so I'm going to peek. I'm not going to touch, but it's simmering beautifully, starting to fluff up the rice, starting to be delicious. This, I think I'm going to turn up just a little bit. I happen to like vegetables that are cooked through. I don't like al dente vegetables. If I want al dente, I'd rather have raw. I like it better soft and as opposed to crunchy. To me, a crunchy vegetable is something that you eat when it's raw, not on a plate for dinner or lunch, unless you're having a salad. The pundits say, oh, no, no, no. You don't cook it to death. Well, I like to cook it to death, particularly if I'm steaming, because the water, it's just the steam that's cooking the broccoli. It isn't the water, and the nutrients are going to, it's going to preserve a lot of the nutrients and vitamins that you get from the vegetable. So we're boiling nicely here. I'm going to let it boil a little bit more, see if I can get it to reduce a little bit. Notice I have no cover on it, because if you have a cover on something that you're boiling, it's not going to reduce. And I want it to reduce a little bit here. So that's cooking nice, it's rolling. Smells, you can smell it. Oh my gosh. Woo! I just got a big whiff with the chili pepper and the ginger in it. So there's a nice little kick to it, and the apple cider vinegar adds a little bit of sourness to it. And honestly, I'm not a real big fan of a sweet and sour flavor, but this flavor is really very delicate. All right, so I'm going to put the rest of the chicken in, and any of the juices that have collected in this bowl, I'm going to put in as well, because it's flavor. You don't want to eliminate any of the flavor that you have. Give it a twirl. It's going to cook through and reduce. So let it do its thing. I'm going to check on the rice again. Nice. So let's go over here a little bit so that we can get things ready for the broccoli. Now, I've made this before, and you may have seen the episode, you may not have, but it's about the favorite way that my family likes to eat broccoli. And I'm going to make it as a salad, sort of, a cooked enchilada. So I have a clove of garlic here that you're just going to give a tap to, which helps release the paper, because you don't want to eat the paper. I also don't like the stem end. You'll see some of the cooks or chefs will keep the stem. I happen to think it's not attractive and it's hard. So if it's not attractive and it's hard, in my opinion, it shouldn't be in the dish. So I have 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces. I'm going to put 1 more in because I have a lot of broccoli in there. And I'm going to cut it in half, which will give me 5 pieces of garlic. Now, why am I making a big deal out of that? Because you want to remove them before you serve it. You don't want to serve, most people really don't know what these are. Many people don't. I know my husband didn't. God bless him, I married him anyway. I had to school my husband. Poor sweet man. I don't know if I told you this story, but I love it. I'm going to tell it again. When we were first courting, really first courting, we had gone to buy some nice, beautiful steaks. We were going to barbecue the steaks. It was in the summer, so I had beautiful tomatoes that I bought, and some nice fresh basil and garlic, and a little bit of vinegar and olive oil. So I mixed it all up, nice, delicious, wonderful, easy, and the most tasty tomato salad you could ever want. So I went to grab a few more pieces of tomato, and I looked, and there was no garlic cloves. no garlic cloves left in that bowl of tomato. And I said, well, where's the garlic, honey? And he said, well, what garlic? I said, there was garlic. I had like 6 pieces of garlic in here. Oh, he said, those crunchy white things? And I said, yeah. Oh, that's garlic? They were really good. I ate them. Well, let me tell you something. Then I knew, actually, I knew the next day, I must really love this man. Because he smelled like an Italian kitchen. It was wild. So keep your eye, actually, one of them broke, so there's a few extra pieces. Be careful of that. Let's go check our chicken, see how we're doing. Yummy, delicious, wonderful. We just wanted to look at that. Taste it. I need to taste it. So, my spoon. I want to make sure to adjust for seasonings if I need to. Ooh. Ooh. Delicious. Tasty, tasty, tasty. When you serve this, people's eyes are going to go like this, and they're going to say, Claudia, that's tasty. And you're going to say, exactly! That's what I've been trying to tell you. That's tasty. So I'm going to lower this a little bit and let it just simmer down. How's that? Rice looks perfect. Let's check it out. Oh, wunderbar. I'm going to shut it off and leave the jar, the cover ajar. Again, because I didn't taste it, which I should. I think it's cooked enough. I like there to be a little toothsome, little bit of a bite. Perfect. So, I'm keeping this ajar so the steam can be released and it won't keep cooking the rice, because it's got a nice bit of chew to it, which you want. Or I want. I don't like mushy. The only thing I like mushy is my vegetables. This needs a little bit more cooking. But you know what? I'm not going to cook it much longer. So, we're going to get rid of, excuse me 1 minute, the water on the broccoli. See, now the water is very clear. It's not green, which means the nutrients that are in the broccoli are still in the broccoli where you want it to be. That's a good thing. So my little steamer thing. Why do I have trouble with it? Here we go. Get out of my way. I'm going to cut it up a little bit. You want to make things that are easy for people to eat and tasty, obviously. But if you cut it up, more often than not, it's a good size to put in the mouth. You don't want people having a struggle to eat your food. So when I'm having a party or something, I keep that in mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. These 2 little ones I'm going to toss out because good chance I'm not going to be able to find it. So we're going to put a little pepper in. And when you're putting in a salt or pepper or any kind of powdery thing, you want to do it from a distance. You'll use less and it will distribute much more evenly. So there's that. I'm going to put in just a tiny bit more of salt, probably 1/4 teaspoon more. And there, olive oil and red wine vinegar. This is light virgin olive oil that I use. is probably, I probably put in about 3 tablespoons. And here I put in about 1.5 to 2 tablespoons. I'm gonna give it a twirl. Most people give stirs, but I give them a twirl. And we're good. So I'm gonna let that sit for a minute, and we're gonna plate. And then I'm gonna eat, and you're gonna be jealous. So, smells delicious. I just love the smell of garlic. Probably because I was raised with it, but I like the smell of it. So, here we go. I'm going to take a little bit of rice. Probably a 1/2 cup of rice there. Some of this deliciousness. I'm gonna put it right over, like that. A little bit of juice. A little bit of broccoli. Look at the color. Isn't that delicious? I'm going to make it look real pretty. And there's a couple of dribbles here. I'm going to remove. And it's time for a taste. Get ready to be jealous. Here we go. See, nice and bite-sized, delicious. You know what this is? That's tasty. That's tasty. Delicious. So here we do. This meal I cooked right before your eyes. Took me 30 minutes. Nice, healthy, delicious meal that you can cook for your family or guests anytime. You get home from work, you have the ingredients. And like I explained to you, if you don't have, say for instance, apple juice and you have cider, use the cider. If the recipe calls for light brown sugar and you have dark brown sugar, use it. Don't go out and buy stuff that you don't ordinarily use. Look in your pantry. Chances are really, really good you'll have exactly what you need. Count your garlic pieces and remove them before you plate. I'm a home cook. I'm not a trained chef. And oftentimes, not oftentimes, pretty much all the time, when people come here to eat, they're family. I don't treat them as guests because to my husband and my children and I, they're not guests, they're family. They're here to break bread with us. We dispense with any kind of formality. So oftentimes, I make the people get their own plate. Take what you want. And they dish it right out from the pan. Because why not? They're family, it's okay. Sometimes it's pretty if you want to have it put in bowls and that sort of thing, but it's not a necessary thing in my household. So, here's your meal. Bourbon chicken without the bourbon, steamed rice that has no fat in it, just plain water, steamed broccoli that was dressed with red wine vinegar and olive oil and some fresh garlic, little salt and pepper, and you have a beautiful meal. So, bon appetito. Until next time, I'm Claudia Donnell for That's Tasty. Happy cooking, happy eating.